get out of the way, please.
Everyone stay back there. Now stay back.
Get someone to stop this thing.
I can handle it. We can make it.
Of the humanity.
Hi, and welcome to Ward 13. My guest tonight is self-evident. Well, it was if you were watching just a few seconds ago. Jim O'Connell.
Hi, folks. How are you? Hi, John. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Keep the seat warm for a night.
And why don't you start the conversation, Jim?
Well, I had a list of stuff that I was getting to tonight, and I didn't get around to all of it. But
welcome to start talking about it.
I did. I was talking about school budgets and budgets more generally. And,
I'm going to lower my seat to hide my pot belly. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need more than lowering my seat. But I was talking about our school budget that is being announced and.
When is it being announced?
Well, the budget went to Finance Committee and is going to the school board next Monday night.
The Finance Committee is all the aldermen.
Sorry, Finance Committee of the Board of School.
Oh, the school board.
Yes, the school board finance committee.
And who's the head of that? Richard H. Gerard?
So Richard Gerard is on it.
C'est bon.
C'est bon. So he's on it, and then Sarah Ambrosi, Dr. Avard, and then Art Beaudry, and there's one
as the vice chair.
Yes, and there's one other who escapes me for a moment now because they weren't there at the meeting; they were absent. Or excuse absence. So in any case, so the Dr. Vargas put forward his budget.
What number?
$172 million,
which would be $2 million more than last year.
Yeah, well, it's a little more than that because it's the increase allowed under the tax cap this year is 2.3% because CPI was 2.3% last year.
Now, but they got an extra kicker last year, right?
The year before they got what they asked for, the additional. Well, I hate to even put that's their terms. Last year, the previous year, Dr. Vargas, they put forward the tax cap proposal. Was, and then they said, look, we have to have additional money. And the board mayor and aldermen were always saying, look, if we give you more money, you're going to spend it on things we don't want you to spend it on, and you're telling us you have these priorities, but that's not what you're spending it on. So Dr. Vargas, who was new in town and sadly is about to leave again, said, look, this is what I need the additional $2 million
Right.
for, and this is what I'm going to spend it on.
And he got it.
And true to his, he got it, and
he
true to
spent
his
it on
name, he spent it on exactly the things that he said he would. And so the quid pro quo was, now we've broken that old.
So, but that set the level at that, then. And now we can go to 172.
No, I don't believe so.
Oh.
It's just a once. It's a once off. So
we probably would go to about 170.
Right.
Right. Okay.
But then last year, the quid pro quo was always, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen was always saying, look, if we give you more money, you won't spend it. You tell us you have this needs in schools and our class sizes are too big and we need textbooks, but then you go spend it on something else. So Vargas met their need in that regard and was a man of his word and spent it. And everybody agrees he spent it the way that he said he would. So the expectation in this last budget cycle was that when Dr. Vargas would say, now here's some of the other things, of all the things we don't have in our city, these are some things we have to have, that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen would say, well done, my good and faithful servant, last time. You should, we'll fund. And of course they didn't. They left him $750,000 shy, and so he had to again start making cuts and all the rest of it. So this year, there's the same old arguments going on about whether to submit a tax cap budget or whether to submit the actual requirement.
Well, they have to, and then they can submit the other.
But they don't. The tax cap, if you interpret it, the school
board has to put in a tax cap budget. They don't have the privilege of, like, the mayor has to put one in.
Right.
But then they can. 2
Okay,
weeks
but
later,
just to be,
they can
if you want to
offer
be
another.
precise, the school board has on 2 occasions used taxpayers' money to employ an attorney to give it advice on this exact topic. And on both occasions, the attorney paid for by the taxpayers on behalf of the school board has said that the school board is not required under the tax cap to submit a tax cap budget. Now, the mayor at the time said that he got advice differently from the board. The board mayor and alderman's advice was different. It was
That
the
would be
city's
from the
attorney.
city solicitor.
And the city solicitor said no.
Tom
So-
Clark.
So now you have a disagreement. Now, by the way, an organisation which I was president of, Citizens for Manchester Schools, we offered to pay for an attorney to offer the opinion between these two contradictory views. And of course, this was free money. We were saying we'll pay for it. We'll submit the money and we'll find an agreed upon attorney and let him. Of course, that never happened. So maybe that horse is out of the gate. But I'm just bringing up the point that
That's a whole show because,
Right.
Litchfield
It-
is going to have a warrant about whether to put a tax cap on its school board.
Right.
But
So anyway, so let's
we got
give-
the budgets coming in, it's 172. How does that handle the teachers and their
It doesn't.
contract?
There isn't a penny there for teachers.
What about what just happened? I didn't read the Union Leader article. Mediation?
Yes. So we saw today that that the smoke signals, by the way, earlier was that perhaps things were going a bit better between the
How could that with the head of the committee being Gerard?
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm just saying that was the message coming
C'est
out.
bon.
C'est bon.
Yeah.
So,
bon.
so and then all of a sudden, at least all of a sudden to me, the teachers' union, Sue Hannon, the president of the MEA, notified the board that they were seeking mediation, which is their entitlement to do, and so now they're going to go to mediation.
Which, of course, is mediation. It's not arbitration.
It's right. So we don't know what the result of that will be, but one of the results we do know is it's going to delay the process out through, like the budget is being prepared right now.
Well,
and so it'll delay the process.
it's going to take it beyond the elections, and so you're not
Well,
going
if
to
it
get rid
does-
of that political hot potato.
Well, but then we'd have another year with teachers
Well,
and
there was
staff not being paid.
In my opinion, it was a jockeying of Gerard to try to throw the contract onto the mayor.
Yeah, well,
Which she could have done because Ted Gatzis took over negotiations, which you always remember was always a lot of fun.
Yes, yeah. I could do it better. Well, I remember school board members sort of jockeying for position, over beers, talking about, I'll show, like if the previous negotiator, he thinks he's tough, I'll show you tough, I'll sort those people out. So
Yeah.
when you're going in the room with that attitude, not sort of, let's do what's right for the city, let's make sure that we look after our
What's right for the city, Jim?
Yeah.
When has that been the mantra of
it
the board, school board, or the board of aldermen? Things might change, but that's going to take the people.
Yes,
The
it will
people
take
have
the
to do
people.
something.
So
And I think we should have. They're talking about putting stuff on the ballot for the charter.
Yes.
There should be term limits, and they should get rid of the at-large positions on both boards because they don't serve anybody, particularly
Yeah.
the two aldermen.
Right.
Now, Danny, he was fine, but it's gotten to a point of diminishing returns.
Right, and I don't, I don't
Neither
understand
one of those
why they,
guys
yeah,
should be
why
on
they're
the board
well.
anymore.
It's not but they won't be there forever, right?
Well, they seem to be.
Well, that's true too.
When
perhaps.
when nobody runs against them, because you have a New Hampshire Democratic Party, which I put in parentheses, that makes sure that nobody runs against them.
Right. Well, I don't know if that's so. I don't know that, but I know that it's true. The last time that neither on the school board side or on the board mayor and alderman side, the four at large positions, 2 on each, they all went in uncontested.
Right,
So,
and Connie Van Houten was one to run against Gerard, and she was stopped from doing it.
Really?
And Kathy Sullivan and company, which that's, the New Hampshire Democratic Party, they had John Rist was going to be the candidate right to the end, and then he didn't run, and nobody was recruited. And right up to the last day, you can listen to the radio show I was on that day.
Well, despite my,
But I'm just saying, you need term limits. You got to do something. This old boys network, and it is old boys. It's gotten to the point where it's just not effective anymore. Retire with your honor, and the other guy, can retire back to the greasy spoon or whatever. But it's ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, I'm not a
They
big.
don't represent anybody.
I'm
but
not a big fan of term limits because I think that just like I'm not a big fan of the tax cap, because in the end, democracy is democracy.
And
if the
Billy Shea, he should have retired many years ago. People don't know when to retire.
Yeah.
And when you have people, only 12% of the people vote, and you have a party on
there's
my side that's so utterly
there's the answer, right?
gone.
There's the answer isn't having people vote, right? So
They don't.
Yeah,
They don't because they see the system.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's because they see the system. I don't think people are.
You're technically a European, even if you are from Ireland.
Yeah, but
Soon to be.
Well, you're going to go into Brexit, which we could spend some time on.
Jeez,
which
the
is
whole thing about the
unbelievable.
border.
It's unbelievable. So I'd like to speak. We could spend a minute on that because there was development.
Finally, the UK is going to get rid of Northern Ireland and put it back on.
Yeah, maybe.
Talk about a basket case, huh?
That is a base. You want to get on? We can get onto that in a second. But I just want to say, like back to the city. I don't like.
I'm a radical. Cut right down to the roots.
Well, radicalism's good. I'm when you talk about like what's happening in the Democratic Party in Manchester or in the state or something, despite my protestations and the amount of involvement I have and going to meetings and talking with various people, I'm not a party political person.
How could you be?
I have no idea what goes on within the deep brains of the Republican Party in the state or the city, and I have no idea what goes on within the deep brains and brain power
that's
of the
another
Democratic
creature
Party.
altogether.
I have no idea, and I don't want to know because the piece that I see, I'm not crazy about. So
Yeah, my party, it's kind of locally, it's kind of like this. I wouldn't say it's like a hydra, although it's like some gelatinous creature that, I guess you could fight it all you want, but it would just be, I think of FDR, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy in World War I, and in World War II he's saying, it's just like during the First War. It's like punching a feather mattress. You fight it, you punch,
Right.
and it just comes right back to
Yeah.
what it was.
It's interesting. He was first, and then you have for the World War II, and at the same time, of course, Churchill was First Lord of the Admiralty. So effectively, Secretary of the Navy is the effective position in the UK. But
although he had to quit after the Dardanelles disaster, Gallipoli.
Yes, but anyway, so
my cousin Winston Spencer Churchill.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, I forgot you had some connections to. Although he's gotten a little controversial in England recently because
he should be.
Yes, because of his
fascism,
and
racism,
misogyny, and other things. So
born in 1874.
So, yes, and he's a man of his day, and I'm.
I know. What did he call? They want him to go see A Cabin in the Sky, and he refused. He says, "I'm not going to go see a movie with blackamoors."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I visited Dunkin' Donuts today. Dunkin'
No
Donuts.
donuts
Yeah,
anymore.
no, I didn't have the donuts because I'm trying to be good. But I was at Dunkin' Donuts today, and
Dunkin'. It's no longer Donuts.
oh, it's not. Oh, that's right. It's just
Dunkin'.
Dunkin's.
You can
All
go
right.
to Bill's Donuts if we can find it.
Right.
but-
So I was at Dunkin's today. I'd stopped off, and it was over at Exit 4 on Route 3.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I went in there, and I sat down. I was having a coffee, and I had 10 minutes to spare on my way. I didn't want to be sitting somewhere 10 minutes waiting, so I said, I'm going to go in and have a coffee, and I'll just catch up on a few things on my phone. And I'm sitting there, and there were two gentlemen sitting at the table next to me. And people can believe this or not, but I'm just saying I have never, I think, ever. If I ever did this before, it was 1,000 years ago. But for the first time I can ever remember, I couldn't take it any longer today, and I actually said something.
What were they
because
talking
the
about
gentleman
then?
sitting next to me was being, a little louder than he needed to be, so a few people could hear it.
Same what?
Well, so he started off, and he made it plain that he was a MAGA, Make America Great guy, and somehow he was able to think that had something to do with Donald Trump. But in any case, he went on and slowly descended into this whole thing, and started talking about President Obama and being from Kenya. And,
foreign born, Muslim.
But then,
the Sharia
so
law.
I was sitting there, and I meet people from every walk of life and from every opinion. I'm used to hearing it. Like, God bless them, people are entitled to their views. But as I'm drinking my coffee, it just kept getting worse. And then he got into race, and he started talking about the fact that you couldn't find a white doctor anymore. They're all Indians and from Pakistan and Bangladesh or somewhere, and you can't get a white doctor, and how these people got in our country. And he went on, and it got worse and worse. And slowly he descended into this bigotry and hatefulness and
descended, huh?
yeah. And so
I think he was already there.
yeah, I had enough.
Descended even further.
So I was only halfway through my coffee, and I just couldn't take it any longer. I didn't lose my temper or anything, but I just made a determination I was going to say something. So I stood up, and I very politely said to the gentleman and his friend, I said, I was sitting at the table next to you trying to enjoy a coffee, and I've chosen to leave because I don't want to listen to what you're saying. But I said, you're factually incorrect. The things you've stated just simply aren't true. And the level of, I said, the hatred that you're spewing around this room right now, you have to be conscious of the fact that you're spreading what is ultimately evil, and you should contemplate that. I don't want to argue with you. I said to the man, we'll never meet again, probably, and you'll be very happy about that.
Unless he stalks you.
And he can stalk me if he wants, but I just couldn't believe that he, in a public place, would feel free to do that. I know I'm sharing this other than it happened about a few hours ago this afternoon, and I was just appalled.
Because it was appalling.
It was appalling to talk about. He was talking about. He went through the whole every minority he could think of. He dealt with them all. It was a terrible thing.
Well, the next time you need a donut, go to the New Hampshire Mall, the mall in New Hampshire, because Bill's Donuts has a kiosk there. now. You can get c'est bon. You can get the Rich Gerard special. It's a unique donut.
Where is this
it's
now?
It's kind of like a Boston cream, except the chocolate glaze is made out of X-Lax, and when you bite into it, like the lemon meringue turns out to be bile. Ugh, God. C'est bon.
C'est bon.
C'est bon. Oh, Bill's Donuts. Heidi Hamer, I think, is the latest franchisee. The Honorable Heidi Hamer.
Really? What's Bill's doing? I'm sorry, I don't know. I know Krispy Kreme, who cuts out of Burn
That's
Brightly.
Chicago.
Yeah. Well, they
And they're in Walmart.
They expanded and then quickly retreated again because they overexpanded. And
I was told by the Social Security Administration, I could actually, there is a job for me out there. I qualified to be on a bakery line. And I said, geez, Zoo, I probably weigh about 200 kilos after a few weeks on that job.
I know I could never.
That's like 500 pounds, folks.
It took me quite a while to walk in. I've had a major personal, achievement in actually being able to walk. I love my coffee.
Pure.
And so
fat pills.
Yeah, but for a long time, they sat there. I looked at them and I'm like, damn it, they're bad for me. I'm going to have one of those. And touch wood, I'm doing much better and staying away from.
Oh, geez,
those
that
things.
Market Basket has some good donuts.
It does, yeah. I'm not a.
Hopefully, but they're all sold out by the time I get there.
Right.
Thank God.
So anyway,
so we were talking about the lovely
budget,
school board.
So the budget. So we're going to see.
I thought we were going to privatize the schools.
Well, there are those who would like to do that, right? I mean,
thought
we already
we
have
are.
727 children in Manchester, according to the latest numbers. 727 children in Manchester in charter schools and being homeschooled.
C'est bon.
Of the 30 charter schools in the state of New Hampshire, 20%, six are in the city of Manchester. So we have more than double the state average. So
Hey, where do they get the $4.2 million to give to a private religious high school? Where do they get that?
I
loot?
spent some time on this last week, and I actually got some phone calls about this. I got a little, people were unhappy with my
That's
advocacy.
right. You know, what are you, a Protestant?
Yeah,
Thinking there's
yeah.
some type of separation of church and state?
Yeah, so I was
Communist.
surprised, and I was trying to make the point. But in most
Oh,
government-
that's that Protestant hogwash.
You know, you win some, you lose some, and if you count it in terms of wins and losses, I call that a loss. And we move on. And I said I want to
Yeah,
share.
what's $4.2 million bucks?
I said I want to share with you. I sent an email to I think all the aldermen, but I'm not sure I got the full email list right. So if one or two didn't get it, but most of them got this email from me the night that they decided to spend the 4.2
Keith
million.
Hirschman is a Protestant.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
He might have gotten back to you.
No, he did. I spoke.
He always gets back. No,
Yeah.
If you send something, Keith's the only one.
Right.
That was a joke, but Keith actually is a Protestant. He's like one of only the four that I knew when I grew up.
yeah.
And
I never ask people, and I don't know. I don't know what they're.
she's a chairman.
I don't know.
Chairman.
So, but I have to tell you.
But the thing is, he is the only person that ever responds to what anybody has to say.
Well, I emailed them. I sent them some information, and I called them all, or
Right.
most of them. I missed two, and I spoke to all of them. Returned my messages except for one, my phone calls except for one. So I spoke to them, and then after the vote was taken, and the vote was 12-2.
Sapienza voted against it.
and then Will Stewart changed his vote to a no.
Really?
Yeah. The most frustrating thing for me, and let me tell you what the email I sent them. I sent them an email when the vote was taken, after it was taken and the meeting was over. I sent them an email, and it basically had 3 sentences. It was quite short, and it was my first sentence was
3 sentences from you.
From me,
You
yeah.
mean it's not like James Joyce, Ulysses, where we get like
a stream of consciousness.
400 pages?
Could have been. Well, the first I sent them 3 pages.
3 sentences,
Yeah.
3 pages, folks.
So I spent them 3 pages of argument. But when the vote was taken and it was done, I sent them an email each with 3 sentences. The first sentence said, basically, thank you for responding and listening to me, and I appreciate your time. So that was just the one sentence. The second sentence was that I hope that my fears are unfounded. Because this is a terrible deal for the city, and I continue to believe that, but I hope my fears are unfounded. And thirdly, and importantly, I now hope that all the children of Manchester, as well as all the children at Trinity, get to use this field and enjoy what will be a beautiful new facility. So I was trying to be magnanimous, and once it's done, it's done.
And the response, did they give you a Bronx cheer?
Yeah, I got no response, but I did actually, and that's fair enough because they did answer me when I reached out to them to call them out first. The thing that was most frustrating, John, about the whole exercise was that I spoke to 12 of the 14 aldermen, and not one of them. They said various things, like they hadn't thought about that yet. They weren't aware of that item yet. That hadn't been pointed out to them.
Thinking is not one of the qualities of an alderman.
Well, I'm
it's
trying
not
to be,
in the charter.
So I'm saying, like, this was their response, right? So the frustrating part was, they had thought about it, and you mentioned Keith Hirsch. Keith was, laid out his rationale.
Oh yeah, he will always
yeah,
explain
which is
something
great.
or talk to you about something.
And that's great.
And he might disagree, but
yes.
he actually takes.
And notice
some
it too.
time.
Like Kevin Kavanagh said to me, he said, Jim, the scenarios you're raising are like you're taking the most extreme example. And I said, Kevin,
That's what you do in a legal
that's
argument.
Exactly. Like when the document says that the city of Manchester, its representatives, must give 24 hours written notice before entering on the field, that's what it says.
That means they own the field.
And you can have that would never happen, and they've always played nicely together. And I said, you know what? Knowing the people that I do at Trinity, the guys who are there right now, and the people I know are mostly guys there, they're all good guys. They're Manchester guys, and I could never see them saying we're locking the field and get out. But this is a legal agreement. Who knows what happens in 3 years from now?
This is a subsidy to a religious private institution,
right. And
that's troubled financially
right.
because of a sex scandal. It's was revealed starting in Quebec in the 1970s.
Well, you saw the cardinal in
Francis is trying to do something.
The cardinal in Australia today. He was
the Bishop of Gob.
Yeah, he was. So the whatever it's called,
whenever you talk about Australia, there was a Monty Python skit where they have the Bishop of Australia with a big can of Fosters.
Really?
Well, he's an Anglican
Right,
bishop,
right,
obviously,
right.
but
well,
you're talking about
a cardinal who's the highest level of cleric you have in the Catholic Church in any country.
like
The
a
cardinal
senator.
in Australia, he was convicted of child sex abuse
in a court.
Yes, and they removed the gag order. A Cardinal Pell. They removed the gag order today. There was a gag order on exec. So he was convicted of sexually assaulting 2 choir boys. Back some years ago, so it explains why he was quietly removed back in January when his name was removed from some Vatican list. But
don't you miss the old days where like the cardinal in Chicago had the nun was his mistress, and he had illegitimate kids. But I'm just being a heterosexist.
Well, we had this.
It
It happened in Ireland. Ireland was
right. The cardinal in Dublin. Remember that was like 25 years ago. He had a son.
It was Bishop Casey,
and he supported them, or he
did.
stopped?
He was supporting them,
support him.
And he had the family. I think they were sent to live in America or something. But anyway, he was been supporting him. And
they always figured Pius XII. They called her the Popessa, the nun that had been with him, and then they gave him a younger nun at the time. Yeah.
So
I'm a Protestant, but we always figured.
So as a Catholic, these things, when that happened in Ireland, it was a great shock to people in Ireland that that the fact that one of their bishops was not celibate, and he was a very popular man.
See, I can't imagine people thinking like that,
right?
Because everybody I grew up with was Catholic. My mother was a Catholic, so my father didn't have any siblings, so like the entire family's Catholic. They were about as Catholic as, probably, but I'm probably more Protestant than they are, which means hardly any.
Well, I think about
none of them are. I don't know anybody that took any of it seriously.
Right. Little did we know back then, that the shock, and Bishop Casey was actually...
My mother was shocked by it. My father wasn't.
But little did we know the real truth of what was going on, like what has been revealed in the years since.
Globe Spotlight, that was shocking.
It was all incredible, the things that were being done to children, and they were...
They sent them up here to Manchester. Yeah. This was part of the...
right. So
they cycled them through here. And where would you send people? If you wanted the community where nobody talks about anything, Jeff.
Right.
Send them to Manchester.
Yeah, keep your mouth. Well, now what's new, and
we've gone from Trinity at the high school to this.
Of course, the latest thing is now there's a
I'm just being light about it because it's so shocking.
It is. It's terrible. And as a Catholic, and as somebody who's proud to be a Catholic, and I go to church and sort of look after my own little corner, and I think about. When I think about the things that have been going on, it's shocking. It's
right.
It's shocking
and then you had a Pope, John Paul II, going after the liberation theologians who did so much good done in Central America and lost their lives.
Right. So
they really influenced Tip O'Neill. Those
the
Maryknoll nuns.
Oh yeah. Of course. Yeah.
He was very.
Well, we did have Bishop Romero who was murdered. They made him a saint in the last number of years. So
really,
that
wasn't John Paul.
No, it wasn't. But it was under either Francis or the previous guy. I'm not sure which one. But anyway,
Benedict.
Benedict.
Do you know why Catholics got so high in the CIA starting in the 50s? People like Bill Buckley. Well, Bill Buckley quit.
Right.
Because Catholic priests behind the Iron Curtain were one of the best intelligence networks. So. Yeah.
Well, we saw that with Lech Walesa and the whatever movement in
John
Poland,
Paul
right?
Fierce anti-communist.
So I didn't start off to talk about
that.
But
I'm just saying, the church has done so much good through the ages.
Yes,
it's done bad, but
incredible.
Good.
The largest charity in the state of New Hampshire is Catholic Charities,
and those nuns and priests, they did remarkable work.
Well, this is like, I was saying explaining to people tonight that my argument wasn't against Trinity; it was against the city getting a lousy deal.
Yeah, Trinity is part of Manchester.
Right, but,
we play the high school, but it's a private.
But when I think back to the original, I do a tour of the Cathedral of Manchester every month, and we go through the history.
You mean St. Joseph?
At St. Joseph's Cathedral.
Because there's 2 cathedrals.
If you were
only one Catholic, if you were French Canadian.
Yeah.
Well, the French Canadians consider that a cathedral.
But it's not. So,
Oh, you Irishmen.
but it can only be a cathedral. You know,
Safe.
a cathedral is a church that has the cathedra in it, which is the bishop's seat.
Right. I
So
know.
there's
I've
only
got-
one cathedral.
you know,
But there
in
is-
a Protestant church. There's hardly anything in there,
There
which I
wa-
like.
There was a time, when there was competition between French Canadians,
Once
Catholics,
was,
and Irish
once.
Well, I don't see any evidence of it today. So,
Oh, Jim.
am I innocent? I don't know.
A
I don't-
naif.
I don't know that. I really don't. But
You have been to
St. Marie.
the other cathedral.
There's only one cathedral. I have been to St. Marie's. It's a wonderful church.
It's beautiful.
It is, and some great things happening there, and it's all good. No, so I'm not like trying. I have no interest in covering anything up or anything. I mean, I just don't.
While all you Irishmen were getting drunk and getting into bar fights, the French Canadians were over there being very industrious on the west side. They brought the first credit union in America.
La Casse Populaire Saint-Marie.
Right. I couldn't for the life of me think about Casse, which because in Paris they use the word bank. B-A-N-Q-E. No, it's not that.
La Casse.
And they were hard working. They were steeple. They were the steeple men.
Yeah.
They built the smokestacks. While all you potato eaters were getting drunk and fighting. So they had to bring the French Canadians down.
No
Oh, my God.
characterizations there.
Well,
But
fraternizing with Big Bill Hayward and the Wobblies.
when you look at the history of Manchester, I
Red
say,
right down to your union suit. You know what a union suit was?
What? No.
Your, long johns, which were red in the old days. So they
Was
called
it
them a
a
union
union
suit.
suit?
Well, yeah, with the drop.
Yeah. For whatever purpose. Yeah.
You had the drop bottom. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah, they called it a union suit because it was red.
What did that
long
got to do
underwear.
with
Red is the color of labor. Should be the
Okay.
color of the Democratic Party too.
Oh, okay.
Go Bernie.
Go Bernie. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there was a history of mistrust, etc. What's interesting, when I do this.
How many subjects have we got on your thing yet?
Oh, we haven't even touched any of these.
Let's reorganize. What's your second subject?
So guns in schools. So in the state of New Hampshire, according to the state of New Hampshire,
Don't you think guns are good in schools,
No,
Jim?
no,
I come from Danbury, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Do you know it was right next to me?
What?
Newtown.
Yeah.
Do you know what's in the villages in Newtown? Sandy Hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, guns and schools go together so
So in the
well.
state of New Hampshire, as the law currently stands, I'm
sure you're gonna shock me again.
Well, you're allowed to bring a gun into the
Come on.
Yes.
That can't be true.
It's
That's
true.
against the federal law.
No, not in the state of New Hampshire. And
Federal law, you can't have a gun within 1,000 feet.
no, you can't have drugs within 1,000 feet. But you can
God,
have,
do you mean they repealed that law?
so
that was a Clinton
I don't know
era
anything about
law.
a federal law. I know in the state of New Hampshire that a school board or board of mayor and alderman can pass no legislation or no ordinance that would preclude
I feel like F-bombing.
a person from carrying a gun onto school property.
You're telling me the federal law that prevented people with guns coming near a school is gone, just like the assault
I don't
ban?
know of that law. I know the law in New
I
Hampshire.
I remember the Sandy Hook massacre. Those were my neighbors. Unless you've gone through something like that, you have no idea.
So the thing,
no
but
idea.
let me just where we are today. So under
It's
the
New I
Well,
don't even want to talk about it.
we
It's
have a
like
new
when I have
we have
flashbacks.
new representatives and a change of leadership in Concord. So two things have happened. One we saw was within the State House they passed legislation that you can no longer bring a weapon onto the floor into the chamber of in Concord, and that proved to be controversial. It's
being going to be challenged in
Right,
court
so-
by Al Baldessaro. I
Right. And
thought.
now, yes, and then in the schools, we're only one of three. There are 3 states in the United States: Wyoming, amazingly Hawaii, and New Hampshire, where you're allowed to have a gun to bring a gun into the state house, and so that has been changed, and the other change is that this law that meant that a principal or Dr. Vargas or even the mayor could not challenge if somebody walked into one of our schools and there was a public meeting on for parents.
So I can
and they
bring-
were carrying a gun and they have a license to carry the gun. No, a police officer cannot challenge them. You could make a call.
I can bring a semi-automatic rifle into the Board of Aldermen
I don't know about the border. I'm talking about schools.
Can I chamber around?
I don't know if you can.
Can I aim it at somebody?
I don't know anything about that. I only know that the law was changed a few years ago that you can bring a gun onto school property in the state of New Hampshire. Now, what's happening is that law has now been through the House. They have passed a bill that would prohibit guns from being carried onto school property, and it's to go for full vote and then go to the governor for his signature.
The Senate has to get through the Senate.
It seems,
Jim.
But it seems
Senate is Republican, Jim.
It seems no, it's not. The Senate is Democratic.
14-10.
No, the Senate is Democratic.
It's 14-10.
Democratic.
No, it's not.
Do you want to take a little side bet? You can buy me.
What am I going to bet? My
coffee?
disabled American veterans
you
hat?
buy me a coffee. You can pay it in installments over 4 weeks, a tenth of a cup.
Didn't we have a bet before that you lost, or is that
no,
somebody?
no,
Or
must
did
be
I
somebody
lose to
else.
you?
I never bet. No, the House and Senate both went Democrat in the last election. So, but it seems incredible to me. I understand people's Second Amendment.
I am one of those Democrats that buys votes. $2.
$2 votes. Those are cheap votes.
Same as when Edgar Allan Poe was buying votes.
$2. Anyway, yes, the House and Senate are now Democratic. So it just seems incredible to me. And I understand people's feelings about gun rights and et cetera, and Second Amendment and all that stuff. But it would seem to me that rational people could agree that if the principal at Southside Middle School,
Donna Soucy's the president.
If the principal at Southside Middle School, or the principal over at West, or the principal at McLaughlin, or was having a parental meeting or a public meeting in the school, and somebody showed up, with a weapon strapped to their hip, and they said, and you could imagine they'd be able to say, we don't want you to carry your weapon into this room. Please leave it outside. It's a school building. And it turns out that they cannot do that by law in the state of New Hampshire, which just blows my mind. Because of course,
I didn't even know.
Yeah, because if the wrong people ever showed up wearing guns, if you happen to be, from the wrong side of the tracks, and you showed up with your pistola hanging off of you, your feet wouldn't hit the ground.
In 1967, no, that's not necessarily true. In 1967, the Black Panthers, mostly located in Oakland, went to the Capitol building in Sacramento with rifles, which weren't banned at the time. They sure were soon afterwards.
Right. Well, we had at City Hall, we had 4 guys from the something Patriots or something show up.
Patriots.
Patriots. I was speaking at a Save Our Schools rally. It wasn't that controversial. We were just talking about fund our schools properly. I was speaking at a Save Our Schools rally at Veterans Park, and 4 guys showed up dressed in fatigues, all the gear on, and they were carrying long guns and.
Yeah, and they have rounds in the magazine.
Yeah, and they stood there, and they said that they were there, and they were entitled to do it, which under the law they are, but they were there to preserve liberty and to show a show of force against people who would.
But some guys tried that at Plymouth State, and they got busted because the lawyer, threatened to sue me for one of the Republicans, and he's disbarred now.
Yeah, I don't know, but it seems to me so. I think that it's a wonderful thing if we end up with this. The other thing I was talking about, I didn't get to my show today, was that this
the Jim O'Connell show.
The Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. Right. Yeah. So we've had people talking about adequate funding for schools, right? So Mr. Andrew Valinsky has been out talking about.
Yes, I'm going to get him on the show, and maybe we can get him on both shows.
Yes. So he's been doing a tour. I'm
going to have a couple of lawyers come on. To talk about the Claremont 1 and 2.
Yeah, so that he's been talking about that and the difference that has been made. And when you look at the actual difference,
send myself a message. Don't get back to that.
So pre of Claremont 1, post Claremont 1, pre Claremont 2, post Claremont 2,
right.
And he graphs the spending by town and the distribution of spending across different districts. It's exactly the same. So you can argue about Claremont all you want, but the actual numbers have stayed the same comparatively. The same towns still have the same advantages they've had before. So.
See, I couldn't believe that, having lived most of my life outside of New Hampshire. Something like that couldn't happen. But there's an anomalies in the state constitution. It's so much closer to what England was until Tony Blair had the reforms and created the Supreme Court in the UK, whereas like Parliament was paramount.
Right.
And here there was the fight over, which included the they impeached the Chief Justice, but they didn't convict him,
Right.
where the General Court was declaring itself paramount and the law.
Right. And ultimately, like, they're doing that because they refuse to fund education adequately. The Constitution requires that the state fund education adequately. But of course,
And
they
we
won't
have
do
a
that.
democratic political establishment that's not going to touch that and not going to have lawyers go after stuff like that. Because we can't PO the all-important Reagan Democratic male voter. Like, I see all these people now, all these candidates of color from the Democrats coming in. Not one of them is going to address the fact that our firefighters, according to Joe Lavasser, each and every one, male and white. And Joe said there might be one Hispanic. And probably a white, all this stuff. But they're never going to address anything locally. And because of the New Hampshire primary, nobody's ever going to address an issue like that.
But hang on a minute, John. I don't know about this, but I have to say,
true, Jim.
But no,
And
maybe
nobody,
so.
I have.
I know a
since
lot of
got back,
firefighters in Manchester, and the ones I know all happen to be white, and they all happen
and
to
they
be
all
male.
are white. And they just
Right,
hired 3 white guys.
and they're great guys. But
the point is, Jim, how can you have in when I came back in 2010, it didn't make any sense.
No, but
because I know Chief Mara and Chief Willen, I'm sure Chief Capano, and I don't know who was the chief before Chief Mara,
Chief
but
King, it was who came after King.
but they have promoted diversity in the police department.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't. But when you say that,
it just shocks
when
me
you say that things aren't going to change, and
I have
you
tried
talk about
to get a Human Rights Commission. I talked to all the great liberals, of which there were
Let me just say-
one and maybe 2, but you're not a politician. And I go to like these churches and they give these ringing, they just denounce white privilege. Then you go to the pastors and people, let's do something, and they do nothing.
Right. Well, I was just going to point out that if you look at the slate of people who were
cantankerous.
elected to the House,
Too much Irish blood. Too much Celtic.
so
Scottish.
the people who were Scottish, Oi Mackey,
Protestants.
oh heart of Scotland.
Presbyterians, how cantankerous they are.
Yes, I do. Well, but so back to this. So the people who were elected in the most recent round of elections, if you look at the people, we had there was
They're just sheeple.
no, but there was a refugee, a person who came as a refugee elected.
So the Democratic Party could raise money.
No, I don't know that. I don't know all I know is that the body of people.
I've seen the
If you go up to
sausage you
Concord,
made.
it's frightening to see. If somebody ever said all the white guys over the age of 65, could they stand up and leave the room for a minute? There'd be very few people left sitting, and that is changing.
And
right?
there were
So we're seeing a change in demography. We're seeing a change in
old
age.
women too. Old white women.
But less so. I wish there were sort of more women. I wish there were more minorities. I wish there were more young people. I wish there were more. But you're seeing it. There is a change.
But New Hampshire's 91% white.
Yeah. Which is so. Then let the legislature be 91%. I don't believe in quotas, etc. But I don't believe in this idea that things are not.
I voted for quotas and
Yeah,
affirmative action.
California,
we got to vote for everything.
Yeah, I don't believe.
I'm being devil's advocate.
I just don't believe that things are stagnant and that we're not. There's a couple of things generally. I don't believe in cycles, so I don't believe that that things work cyclically.
Oh, Jim,
and
you read
that.
James Joyce?
Yeah.
He was influenced by Vico and the cycles of history.
Yeah, well, of course there are some things you can make it, but they're really, it's a continuum and a progressive continuum, and many people find themselves on the wrong side of it.
The New Hampshire Democratic Party is not. This could be another thing. It's hardly progressive, Jim.
Perhaps not.
It just uses certain buzz issues to raise money.
There are moments in time, there are moments in time when things change.
Maybe a few.
So while I don't believe in cycles, I do recognize that there are moments in time in American history or history anywhere where things take a major turn in one direction or another. And so currently I look at the election of President Trump, and I look at the Brexit situation in Britain, and the election of the new president in Brazil, and the election of the new government in Italy, and I look at the government of Hungary and the government of Poland, and as they all turn to sort of right-wing populism based on half-truths and ignorance, the question for me is...
Why is populism ignorance?
Is this a moment, because it's not based in fact and truth,
So the populism that gave us the in the 19th century and early 20th century, that was all BS too? That gave us liberal institutions?
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Isn't democracy
I'm not saying
populism?
I guess it depends what your definition of populism is, right? Populism to me is sort of jingoistic,
Populism revolutionized the country back in the 1890s. And
you can call
they were the ones that,
the Bolshevik Revolution could be called populism, I guess.
Which one?
The Bolshevik Revolution could be, and any of them could. But no, but I'm saying that there are moments in time when things change, and my question for this period we go through today is it a momentary blip or is it something more profound? Because I go back and I look at the say 1968 and the execution of Bobby Kennedy and
the
JFK,
assassination.
the assassination of them, and there's a moment in time sort of that where everything where everything changes, and
the New Hampshire is 93.9% white in 2010. I doubt if it's still
yeah.
It's hard to believe, but
I don't think it matters so much as with their skin color as the attitudes and beliefs of people, and whether they are sort of bought into the American experiment or whether they just pay lip service to it.
What is the American experiment?
The idea of melting pot of people.
That's gone.
We care nothing of your religion or your race or your background or creed or nationality. You come to the United States and you partake in furthering this great experiment.
Now, Jim, that is a cultural construction of the 1960s. People like Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Yeah. And that was a strategy about LBJ. Yeah. They LBJ had a problem. In 1964, he championed, and it would never have been passed, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, probably the most radical piece of legislation since the Civil War amendments. He got that through in the Voting Rights Act of 65. And the big city bosses, Irish, Italian, and,
German in the Midwest.
Well, maybe.
Polish.
You harps, cause trouble, like Daley. We have an Irish party.
Good old
We have an Irish ward party, government right here, right now.
We do?
Oh, yeah. And
where's
they
that?
didn't like
I'd like
that.
to sign up for some of that.
They didn't like.
Where do I get my slice?
Just throw your hat in the ring, Jim.
Yeah, what ring though? Where's the Irish? We'll
have to take a little of that brogue out.
Yeah, I guess, because I don't see it. I wish there was some, unity of purpose.
Oh, I don't see you ever wearing any orange clothing, my friend. No.
I've got two daughters at Syracuse University, and that's the Coups, right?
Don't tell anybody.
The orange. Their motto is Otto the Orange.
Danny has the problem. He's an O'Neill, and you know where they're from. Ulster.
Ulster, yeah.
But of course, there's
High King of Ireland, Hugh O'Neill.
and the fist.
Yeah, the Fist of Ulster, right? Yeah. Real Ulster, yeah.
Yeah, I have relatives from Ulster, but they're Scotch Presbyterians.
After Brexit, I think that we'll see people worry about the border being created in Ireland. I think that what will happen in the decade after Brexit, and you'll see the chances are you will see Scottish independence, and all it will do is it will accelerate.
Too late.
It will accelerate the independence and eventual unification of Ireland.
It's too late. Always the conservatives like Thatcher. Thatcher was able to balance a budget, pay off the debt because of all the North Sea oil that should have gone to the Scots.
Right.
But they have that imperial fetish, And it's just like some dame just won the Oscar playing, I don't know, some English aristocrat. Because I can't stand masterpiece theater movies. You have all this diversity in the Oscars and everything, but it drives me crazy. All these people that the British and this is high culture and everything.
This lady who this is not my thing, but this lady won Best Actress award and Glenn
Never
Close was
heard of her.
But she was the first British actress to win the
wait a second. The first British actress since Helen Mirren, Dame Helen Mirren.
No, the last one was...
She won in 19...
The last one was 10 years ago, and it was, I think, the woman who played... She played Elizabeth I.
No, she's Australian.
No.
Kate Blanchett's an Aussie.
No, Kate Blanchett is British.
Kate Blanchett is Aussie.
Look it up.
Good God. I will bet you the $2.
No,
I've
Kate
seen
Blanchett.
her on Broadway, Jim. I used to write about her. She might have been a palmy.
Yeah.
She's a palmy, right?
Yeah, well, palmy, but she's
A
British.
palm means £10 a month. You call an Aussie a palmy because
that's it. So-
you're with the Brits and the Aussies hate the Brits, and you hear the word palmy, and all of a sudden there's a fight,
Okay,
and
we
they
got-
would fight with us. Although I wouldn't
Is
fight.
Kate Blanchett Australian or British?
She was
That's who we can
Aussie from Oz.
Um,
Did you ever hear a real accent?
I guess not. Then, if you're telling me, I mean,
Well, all sorts of people went to Australia. It's always been a place for all the floats.
I stand corrected. Kate Blanchett, born in May 14th, 1969, is an Australian actress and theatre director.
She's not even a palm?
No.
Oh, my, Jim. You owe me...
She was born in Ivanhoe. What a great name.
Ivanhoe.
Ivanhoe, Victoria. How palmy can you get? So Kate Blanchett,
like California.
She sneaked off to Australia to be born without telling me. My apologies, John. You're right again.
It was Dame Helen Mirren. I saw her and what's his name, Ian McKellen, in Strindberg, The Dance of Death. But never go to a matinee on a Sunday on Broadway because that's just they blow it off. And he was drunk. And I had met an actress that told me he's a notorious boozer.
Who was this?
Ian McKellen.
Oh, Ian McKellen, of course.
I was expecting to see. Here's a great stage
Yeah,
actor,
yeah.
and she's great.
Sunday afternoon.
And they're playing, Strindberg, which is about as...
It's Sunday afternoon. What are they going to do? Have a few drinks before going to
he
it.
was
I'll tell you
bomb,
why
man.
I thought that Kate Blanchett was British, because I was listening to the BBC the night I was driving, the night that the Oscars were on, and I was listening to it on BBC Radio 5, and the clown on BBC Radio 5, thank you very much. And now that's where I got that fact from. He said the last British actress. Of course, the Brits, the wonderful thing about
Oh,
being,
they pretend everybody's a Brit.
in England, right? You live in England, right? So if a sports star like wins something, right? If they're from Scotland, Wales, or Ireland, they're British.
Yeah.
But if they're from England, they're English. So the British, it's always
Well, in rugby, you got the teams.
We Brits did this, but then of course if
Oh,
they're
man.
English, they're English only. So
They're so obnoxious. You have like a NATO, and the assistant to the commanding general is Sir Dingus, McDingleberry. Oh, and in the BBC, he's the one who's leading everything. You'd think you were in France.
Yeah.
With the
Well,
C'est si bon.
C'est bon.
C'est si bon.
So anyway, I have a lot of friends in England. They're good folks, and
But obnoxious.
sort of-
Let's be frank.
Oh,
My brother lives in England. I have relatives.
I
that
lived
are
in
English.
England myself. I had a wonderful time there. I lived there a
That
couple of times.
masterpiece theater type of stuff is obnoxious. I don't mind seeing Shakespeare.
Yeah, but if you're talking about Downton Abbey kind of stuff, is that what you mean?
Oh, man, that is such bull. Oh, and they're so nice to the servants. Oh, if I could make an obscene gesture without getting thrown off the air, I would.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah. So
But I am an anti-disestablishmentarian, Jim. My family came over here in 1630 to Plymouth Colony, which had all the good witches, by the way, to get away from that awful church, the C of E. Would you worship Queen Elizabeth as the head of your church?
no.
By the grace of God?
By the grace of God. There.
Oh, and all that stuff, that crap. The Tom, what's his Hanks movies, written by the guy that lives in New Hampshire. Something, the Da Vinci Code stuff.
yeah.
The Queen of England is descended through the Stuarts from James, the brother of Jesus, who emigrated to Scotland.
Well, that's a load of crap.
Jesus.
Come on,
Yeah,
but
but people believe this
that's
crap.
fictional craziness, right? I mean, it's just...
Hey, your mama was a witch.
Your mom-
These Democratic reps are so irresponsible. I think they're all kooks.
They sent you someone sent you a message?
Oh, I'm harassed constantly.
Really?
Do you know Rich Girard? Rich Girard, I hear, is going around saying I'm stalking him.
Really?
Which is what Tammy Simmons, who I get along with now, was on the Rich Girard show saying I was doing that when I had my introduction to politics 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago. Not only was I stalking poor Tammy, and she was going to look out the window and I was going to peek at her like, Lady Godiva at peeping Tom or something. I was a homosexual running around naked in gay
Oh,
bars,
wow.
and I was scarfing up illegal pharmaceuticals with my hindquarters. You know, you're going to say Rich has a lot of class, huh?
I guess I'm very happy I'm not that high.
Talk
up their
about an
profile
assassin.
because, you know, yeah, I don't need to. You know, life is
think
hard
he's this-
enough. Life is hard enough, and
He's
there's
a reptilian. I think he's an actual reptilicus alien. Yeah, I was asking Ryan Gorman about it.
I never, you know, sometimes I had.
Do you think he's human?
Of course. You know,
Oh, you liberals!
no, I
You look at reality and you just can't call a reptilicus
I
a
like
reptilicus.
I like to keep conversations about policy, about disagreements on policy, and
C'est bon.
and that's why I'm not a party political person, because I just, you know, even
I'm
though
a stalwart of the Democratic Party, and you
Right,
know that.
right.
I'm a DNC operative. I'm a NSA. I'm all these things. You know, I wish they would give me a
there's nothing
paycheck.
wrong with the NSA, you know. NSA, you know.
I found out that somehow the thing says I worked at the NSA on my Facebook page.
Really?
Well, we got 30 seconds. The
Well-
story about me and the NSA is a whopper.
Yeah.
Jim, thanks for being on. We'll
Oh,
have
thank
you
you
on
very
some
much.
more.
We
I
never
know Jeff Cassell wants to have a debate with you.
Oh, I enjoy it. I'd like talking. Jeff is Jeff. Yep, I'd be happy to talk. Maybe we can talk tax
The
cap or
elections.
something.
The elections are coming up.
Yeah.
Hey, see you next week. Nikki Casey will be on talking about Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. She'll be the guest
Thank
host.
you, folks, and
Bye.
thank you, John, for the opportunity.
C'est
See
si
you.
bon.
C'est bon.